strike to claim it, a strike to claim it, and he got it!
That is right, I did it! At number 5! Are you kidding me? That's right! Who do you think you are? I am!
There is no greater feeling than being right, but there is a great feeling of being right when everyone else was telling you that you were wrong. And when I dropped my Avatar: The Last Airbender predictions and speculations video, I was met with just the fury of the Avatar fanbase. And I don't even want to call it the Avatar fanbase. This is more the Avatar: The Last Airbender fanbase that is looking forward to this live action, because I was skeptical about this show. The biggest thing is the creators walked away, and that was my point, is why did the creators walk away for creative differences? And the second thing is, why the heck are they talking about all these writing decisions that don't make any sense that they're just removing because they feel like it's problematic? Like, for example, Sokka's flaws. Why would you remove his flaws when the whole point of flaws is that you're supposed to grow from them? It's crazy, but the show is dropped now, and I have not finished the whole show. I just wanted to watch the first episode and give my initial thoughts. That's what I did with my One Piece one, and that worked out pretty well. So this is just going to be sort of my overall thoughts on the pilot of the Netflix live action, as well as sort of comparing it to the original, because right after finishing this, I thought that I was being a little too pessimistic about the approach they took for this show. So I went back to watch the original, and oh my goodness, I felt even more validated. The pilot to the original show is so well done. I don't know how they butchered it so bad in this live action. So we're going to be talking about that and more. And if you don't want to hear it, it's okay. Just click off the video. This is for people who really want to sit down and hear why I personally think the Avatar has failed in his live action debut, as well as why it's important to keep the original creators on board, because messes like this end up happening. And as you can see right now on my screen, I have the Rotten Tomatoes pulled up for this show. It is not looking good. I made it, my last thumbnail was a joke for the Rotten Tomatoes. I just made up the score. But the fact that it's close to this, I was expecting the show to get at least an 80%, but for it to be 67, that's just insane to me, and I think it's going down too. So, just starting off, I just wanted to jump in and talk about the problems I started pointing out with the first episode. And going in, I think the biggest thing and the biggest problem has to do with what I like to call the Hamburger Dilemma. And if you don't know what that is, it's something I literally just made up a few seconds ago to explain my points. So the Hamburger Dilemma, the way I like to look at it, is whenever there's something that needs to be adapted. So from its source material, so you could look at comic books, manga, for example, old animated television shows, and you're turning it into a different medium like live action. You're seeing the same thing with video games. They're turning that into live action as well. You run into the Hamburger Dilemma, and there are a lot of shows that fall victim to it. And basically the way I like to look at it is, although the shows, you can tell they're high budget because of the way it looks. And by no means does some of the shots for Avatar look bad. It actually looks like they actually put effort into the filmmaking aspects of the show, specifically with its production design and costuming. They got the costuming on point, casting for the most part, I will say, and honestly, I kind of like the world they built. It feels similar to Avatar. But where the problem runs into it, and this is where I describe it as a hamburger, is when you order a hamburger at McDonald's, Wendy's, Burger King, wherever you go, you expect the whole hamburger. So you expect the beef patty in the middle with all the toppings, whatever you fancy. So it could be tomatoes, lettuce, condiments too, ketchup, mustard, and then the buns. With a lot of shows like this, they look cool. So you have everything like the lettuce, tomatoes, condiments, the bun, but the main part that people are expecting in a hamburger is the beef patty. And to me, a perfect representation of this beef patty, which is a major component of the entire meal, is the writing. And my main worry, and I actually talked about it in my last video covering this, is the fact that the original creators walked away. Why did they walk away from this project? What compelled them to say we are no longer going to be working with Netflix on this production? And we have a track record of this happening. My personal theory is I think there's a lot of good producers in Hollywood or in streaming or wherever in creative fields who make something great, and it's something original that they work on, and because they have notoriety, they're tasked with bringing an existing property back to life, like Avatar, for example, in live action. But since they're the writers, or a major component of it is them during the writing process, such as like screenplays or everything else that basically is a part of this, the issue runs into what do we do when the creators tell us no? And when you don't listen to the creators and you let sort of that fame get to your head where you think you can make a better adaptation than the actual creators, this is where I think creative differences happen, and this is why people leave the project. And I guarantee you, this is what happened with Avatar. We had two competing forces, people who actually worked on the original trying to inform people who were writing for the first time this series and trying to adapt it, who have no experience with it, what to do, and they weren't budging. So since nothing could be resolved, they parted ways. So now you have something like Avatar, where if you watch the first episode of the live action and you watch the first episode of the original series, I'm not expecting it to be a one-on-one comparison. Like it's not translated perfectly. I'm not expecting that. I don't think anyone was. But my main issue is you violate the rules of world building in your first episode. And that's problematic because Avatar is infamous for having one of the best examples of world building and the writing behind characters, or characterizations, have been some of the best of all time. And the fact that you don't capitalize on that is just insane to me. And hear me out. The first episode, and now I'm gonna go into minor spoilers, but if you've watched the original, it's nothing big. It's just kind of the same thing. But in the live action, what happens is for a good, I would say 20 to 30 minutes, it's just an exposition dump of just the history of the Avatar in this world. And you don't get basically until the point of, you don't get the introduction of Aang in the iceberg until later on. It is happening literally 20 minutes in, and you actually get Aang before at the air temple for some reason at the very start of the pilot. So you're already bombarding your audience with all this information that you don't need to do right now. You get to that point later on. They visit the air temple later on in the series. The fact that they decided to show it off and just have all these scenes, for me, I have a theory on why they did it. It's because when, again, and this goes back to the Hamburger Dilemma, they wanted to make bending seem cool. That was one of the biggest issues with Shyamalan's version of Avatar in the movie, was the bending absolutely sucked. So Netflix wanted to come in and make it look like the original show, as well as the bending being amazing like the original show. Like, of course, the bending is what everyone loves about Avatar. And yeah, to be fair, they do bending, I think, pretty cool here. The issue is they wanted to show off bending, but there weren't that many scenes, at least in the original, that really showed them off in really cool ways. It was just kind of like introducing the principle, and then you got cooler fights later on. They introduce two characters, two random characters that you don't know, not part of the original, just to introduce the premise of, oh, you know, Fire Nation bad, which you could have done in like 30 seconds like the original did. Like, the original exposition dumps, it does, in like the first minute. but it just sets like the building blocks to explain, oh, this is how the world is, this is how the world functions, okay, here's the story. This one is like, okay, so now you have the Fire Lord, he is now in charge, and he wants to decimate the Air Temple because there's an avatar among them. And so what happens is, oh yeah, now they're all getting wiped out, which is also really not a great decision, because in the original, Aang hides the fact that he's the avatar, because the avatar could be any person. It could be basically anyone. So he could be a waterbender, firebender, and it has in history. The fact that the avatar, like Aang was the avatar, was like a big secret. Like they knew he was an airbender, but they didn't know he was the avatar. And the fact that they were just like, oh yeah, the mystery's out, and I'm talking for newcomers. It kind of ruins that immersion that the original had. What I also think is like a big issue too is the fact that a lot of the characters here feel like they're trying to be the original, but the writing doesn't give them the opportunity to, and the directing does not as well. I feel like the actors are trying their best for what they were given, but in terms of the delivery, it just doesn't seem like the original series. And it doesn't help too that it doesn't sound like the original characters. Like Uncle Iroh's voice is so iconic, and as much as I love the actor who's playing Uncle Iroh here, it's not the same, and you can tell. And the fact that they also make it way too serious, and it's like, oh, we need to get to our mission. We need to go to the main bullet points instead of, throwing in jokes here and there, because that's what the original did with its, since it was a children's show, you threw in jokes. You brought some levity in, despite it being very morbid at times. That's why I think what made the original so great. And I don't know, it's just the whole thing. When I was watching it, I'm just like, at this point, it's like the same thing I felt with Yu Yu Hakusho, the live action there. They do some things right, like the bending. I think the bending is really cool. But the more I keep watching the show, the more I just want to return and rewatch the original, because that's just infinitely better. And the fact that they also, it doesn't help that they just rush through a bunch of story beats, and like they skip penguin sledding. Why would you skip penguin sledding? That's one of the coolest parts of the original. And you don't have Aang bonding with the kids of the village. You don't have them having time to breathe and just relax. Like, I feel like, and this is my prediction because I don't know how it's going to end. I don't know how season 1's going to end because I haven't finished the show. I think they're trying to rush all the way to the water, like the Northern Water Tribe. They're just trying to get there. And that's like the end of book 1. I'm like, why do that? Why not just take your time in making it? That's what One Piece did. One Piece didn't actually get to the end. They didn't even get to the Grand Line. They got right before Log Town, and Oda probably realized it's probably too much to cut all this out. So they ended it like sort of an arc early so that they would have more time to flush it out going into season 2, which it's getting season 2 and everyone's hyped for it. So that's why I'm like the most confused is Netflix pulled it off. They pulled it off with One Piece because they listened to Oda, they gave Oda final say on everything, and they actually learned to actually write things to take its time and have fun and try and emulate the spirit of the original. Well, here, at least episode 1, I look at it and I'm just kind of bewildered at the fact that, we have this show and everyone was excited for it. And when I made a slight criticism to it based on what I've been hearing from the actors about their portrayal of their characters in terms of what they wanted to do for the character writing, as well as how they want the portrayals to be, I had problems. I had worries. And this first episode definitely made me feel validated because I am absolutely in the right here. I think this was just a huge missed opportunity from Netflix, and I don't know if I'm gonna finish watching it, but my overall thoughts, I think, stop here, where I think going forward, Netflix, if I think this is the trajectory you're going to go down, you're going to actually lose a lot of fans. And the only people I see defending this show are people who are coping with the fact that Avatar needs a good live action and it's better than the movie. Just because it's better than the movie, the bar is in hell. Just because it's better than the movie doesn't mean it's a good adaptation. Like I think it is a poor adaptation, and the biggest thing that comes to mind when I think about this show, at least based off episode 1, I must keep stressing that, is wasted potential, because they got the costuming right. They got, the special effects for a Netflix production. It looks pretty decent, and the actors for the most part are cast properly this time. But where it really matters, which is the writing, they dropped the ball, and that's, I think, the wasted potential there is like they didn't keep the original creators on, because I feel like if they did, you wouldn't run into this issue. So I'm gonna keep watching the show. If they do make a season 2 and it is going down that path, I think it is, where it's just gonna continue to get worse and worse in terms of it deviating from the original and taking itself way too seriously, I think their biggest fix for season 2 is literally just bringing back the original creators and trying to fix what they dug themselves going forward. Because if it ends in the Northern Water Tribe, I would like to see them in season 2 explore Toph and, the Earth Kingdom and, the Fire Nation all properly. Because there's no way, I think, personally, people who are really honest with themselves could see themselves sitting down to watch a season 2 of this, because it has all the pieces. Where it really matters, it doesn't deliver. You're missing the beef patty. That's all I'm gonna say. You're missing the beef patty. And yeah, that's just my overall thoughts. You may disagree. Please flood my comments. Please dislike my video to hell like last time. I don't care. I'm just giving my thoughts. But if you agree with me, I'd also love to hear that. What are your thoughts on this show? And yeah, man, I was so looking forward to Avatar, because I just saw the costuming and saw how much effort they were putting in compared to the movie. And then I heard the creators leave, and I got a little bit skeptical, but had a little bit of hope. And then the interviews kind of made it a little bit worse for me, and then the show actually releasing confirmed my fears. So, yeah. Anyways, thanks for watching, friends. That's going to be it.